Hello, everybody. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. This is episode 72. Today is Wednesday, April 17th. It's just a little bit after 12:30, and I hope I'm coming to you and you're having a great day if you're live, and if you're following us live or listening to us live, or if you're on replay. I hope whatever day or time it is, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Exciting guest today. We have Mike Teolis from Colorbeam. I ran into Mike and his business partner Mauricio at the recent ProSource event in Nashville. And I asked him right there if he'd be willing to come on to our show and spend a little bit of time with our audience talking about lighting control. And he said he'd be happy to join us. So happy we were able to get that scheduled and get that going. Before I bring Mike in, let me just check our technology real quick and make sure that we are in fact streaming and that technology is behaving. So just bear with me as I check that real quick here. Let me refresh my Facebook page. Let's see if it's working. And perhaps, there we are. We're live. All right. Chris says hello. What's up, Chris? All right. Let me bring in our guest today. So here we go. Let me take the artwork off the screen. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Ron. Thanks for having me.
No, likewise. Thank you I know you're a busy man. You're traveling the country and spreading the good word about lighting control. So I appreciate you carving out a little bit of time for me.
Well, thank you for that. Small correction. We're not in the lighting control business. We are everything but. We're not a lighting control. We're the fixture manufacturer, which is bringing the ability to not only do lighting control, which integrators are already doing, but to now add the fixture component to the lighting package. So
got it. I stand corrected.
Sorry about that. Just I wanted to make sure.
Well, no, that's why I have you here. I mean, LED lighting and fixtures and the fixture business and the LED lighting business, you know, from our perspective as a marketing agency serving the industry, we see this topic coming up at an accelerated rate, and it's coming at us and from all directions. And your name, your company's name is in the headlines all the time. And so I thought it would be awesome to get you on here and learn more about you and your company for sure. So yeah, apologies for misstating you as a lighting controls company. Rather, you're a
There's a lot of those guys. We work with them, but we're not a lighting control company per se.
Got it. Understood. Well, if we could start, Mike, with a little bit of your background. And I know that you have a background as an integrator, and I always like to understand all the fun and fascinating people that make up our industry. So if you don't mind, if we could maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. If we're going by the bio that I submitted, everyone has a story as to why they ended up in the AV world, and a lot of it is by mistake, or no one ever grows up saying, I want to be in the AV business. So I graduated from McGill University in Montreal a few years back, and with the ambitions to be in banking and be a stockbroker, and that's what my background is. And I guess in the early days of being in banking, I realized that it wasn't all what it was cracked up to be at the time as a young kid just out of university. And I ran into a gentleman that I hadn't seen in 20 some odd years that had coached me in hockey when I was probably 5-6 years old. And he asked me what I was doing, and I said, well, I'm working for the bank. He says, you like it? I said, no, not really. He says, well, I have a small AV company that could use a sales guy. And quite frankly, at the time I didn't know what AV industry was, and they were selling really what was at the forefront of the LCD panel technology that sat on top of an overhead projector. And I don't know if you're old enough to remember that, Ron. But
I've read about it in history books, Mike.
There you go. So 2 days later, I ended up leaving the bank and telling my dad that I was leaving banking to sell LED or LCD tablets at the time. So that didn't go over well. But we ended up building, going from a small $1 million company to building what became Canada's largest integrator, a $50+ million company with 11 offices across the country and over 250 employees. So that was the early part of my career, and subsequently my partner and I today founded our own AV company, which was more focused in the residential space at the time, and the whole low voltage lighting technology that we brought to market today for the channel was intended for us as AV integrators. Back in the day, in the early, probably going back 6-7 years ago when LED was coming a little bit more prevalent to the market, AV integrators, which is still the case today, are tasked with the control side of lighting, and that's all of the headaches and none of the revenue. Back 7 years ago, it was even more difficult and more problematic to control LED and the dimming curves and what was compatible with lighting, with fixtures, between fixtures and control. So we said, hey, if there was something that we could bring to market that was one, low voltage, that allowed low voltage AV guys to sell lighting, which is not the case unless it is low voltage, then we could have something very different and very substantial to bring to the market and combine that with all the other low voltage technology that we were doing, whether it's audio, video, security, and so on. So one iteration to another, and we came with the basis of what today is color beam, but the technology was actually invented and developed for us as integrators, had success in it with the residential and commercial space. And then we decided to found color beam and bring the same opportunity to the AV channel in North America. So that's really what the whole big push of the industry is today, is now we have an opportunity to bring lighting and lighting fixtures to what integrators have been doing for many, many years, which is just the lighting control. So a brand new revenue stream that is, in a lot of cases, is as big, if not bigger, than the AV portion of what they're driving. And the reality is that, we call it the next great opportunity because there are so many downward pressures in the AV market for years and years. As long as I've been in the AV market, commoditization, pricing, erosion, too many competitors, and the list goes on, that this is really the next great opportunity. And as you can see in the last couple of years, that has been the talk of the AV industry. Buying groups are creating their own lighting initiatives, and we've been at the forefront of those discussions, so we're happy about that.
No, I've got a bunch of I want to say a million questions, but I've got a bunch of questions for you. I do want to quickly acknowledge some of the people that are watching us live. Chris Gamble's coming to us from the UK. He just says, "Hey, Ron." Hey, Chris, how you doing, man? And Liz says she's coming to us from San Diego, and she looks forward to hearing more from Mike. I guess that means I should be quiet. She wants to hear from you, Mike. So Mike, my question is, when you guys 7 years ago to get into lighting fixtures, specifically, did it start strictly as LED lighting that you guys as a category decided that was what you were going to develop a solution? And this is at the time when you were running or involved in management at the integration firm in Canada, correct?
No, at that time, back 7 years ago, that's when Morris and I were now owning our own integration company. So yeah, it was always based on LED lighting, because that was really where probably 7 to 10 years ago we started seeing LED coming out. So the engineering, the design, the concepts were really based on LED fixtures and light engines, as we call them. But we were really at the forefront of a couple things. One was really the ability to tune light. And when we talk about tunability, that has become the big thing in lighting today. And that is being able to control the temperature of the whites. And that is really where lighting is going in general. The other thing that we were doing is driving colored fixtures. So not only did we have an application for tunability, which is what we talk about on the wellness and human-centric lighting portion of our features and benefits, but really being able to transition space into something completely different by using color, which is more applicable in hospitality, bars, restaurants, but even in residential space, when we're designing large houses, there's always a portion of the house that the customers are going to want to convert into something very unique and dynamic. It's probably the space where they're hosting dinner parties and gatherings, and it could be indoor and outdoor lighting as well. So the colored aspect has a big portion of applications, but the tunability and is really what ties into wellness and better sleep patterns, which talks to better health in general. We were really at the forefront of developing that technology before anyone was talking about that anywhere in the industry. So, and that's, in a nutshell, that is where lighting is going. If anyone is coming out with lighting that just turns on and off with a single color white, like it's been for 100 years, you're not in the lighting industry anymore. So that's where lighting is going.
You'd mentioned the color side of LED, and I think that's where, until recent, and I could have the timing entirely wrong here, but I want to say maybe the last 18 months to 24 months, I've been hearing more about the tunable whites, the tunable lighting, the circadian rhythm side or the wellness side of lighting. But a lot of what I had been seeing for years was the color side of LEDs, or adding color into spaces. And I'm going to throw up on the screen here, or put up on the screen, one of my clients and one of your clients. And let's see if I can get technology to behave here, see if this works. Let's see here. There we go. Oh, it looks like it is not. You know what? Every now and then it gets stuck. But what I was going to pull up is the Eagle Sentry project that was just featured in the Technology Designer website. And, that Eagle Sentry is a great customer at One Firefly. And I follow them on social media, and Corey and his team, that this particular project that my audience may see here shortly, if my screen cooperates. But this project has been all over social media. It was covered by CE Pro. It's covered now by Technology Designer. Can you talk a little bit about, just for example, that particular project, and maybe the way you've partnered with Eagle Sentry as an integrator that a lot of people watching probably have heard of or know?
Yeah. And Eagle Sentry is a great partner, our best partner.
Sure.
Hats off to Corey and his team. They really saw an opportunity early on when we were just bringing the technology to market, and understood the benefits and the features that they could bring to their customers. So the timing was right, that Corey was working on, obviously, a large opportunity, a good relationship with the end user. He was able to convey the features and benefits of color beam lighting. And it was a right customer who was looking for color and being able to enhance his home with color. So that's probably somewhere between a 30 and a 35,000 square foot house, which is in probably 95% of the lighting fixtures in the house, indoor and outdoor, are color beam. The whole infrastructure is low voltage. We're pulling Cat cable from panels to the light fixtures, which is the whole value proposition for the integrator. The low voltage aspect of what we do is really the driving force behind integrators getting into the space. As I mentioned before, if this was line voltage, high voltage technology, which has been the case for 100 years since the advent of light, that's what prevented AV guys from getting into the space. So this particular project is 100% low voltage lighting, powered and controlled over Category 6 cable. The fixtures allow for temperature changes with the whites, but really this customer loves the ability to transform his space in his house with color. It's who the customer is. It's the market that he's in. It's just a perfect opportunity to bring that technology to the end user through an integrator who understood the opportunity, the technology, and just saw this as a natural evolution for Eagle Sentry as a company to get into lighting in a big way.
What are you seeing is happening across the marketplace in terms of the adoption of getting into the comfort level, I want to say, of integrators talking about lighting and being the providers of lighting fixtures into their projects?
We're still not there yet. I travel daily to convince integrators that this is a technology that they need to get into. It's a technology that's built for them. The whole infrastructure, we say from our perspective and from Colorbeam's perspective, we say that this was, built by integrators for integrators because of our background as integrators. But we still have far too many AV integrators that are still watching on the sidelines, not fully either understanding the simplicity of getting into this market. Obviously, you have to be working with a manufacturer that not only supports you from a product perspective, but we do a lot of the design on the back end, which is really the driving force behind what we do with our integrators is, hey, we're not expecting you to be lighting designers. That's a profession in itself. So our people at our end are lighting designers. Some of them are actually architects. We're doing that lighting design aspect of the projects for integrators because we understand it. Again, that's a profession in itself. But like everything else, there's early adopters. There's early adopters in the customers that we've sold the technology to. There's early adopters as far as the integrators that have understood this as a unbelievable opportunity to drive revenue and grow their businesses. And there's still a lot of integrators out there that are just not sure of the technology or not sure how to go about it. And collectively, not just ourselves, but there's other manufacturers out there, and there will be more and more. We're probably right in the middle of the education process, and that education process is speaking to integrators one at a time, explaining to them the opportunity, the product, the applications, and really how we're going to support them through the sales process.
Mike, I've got a question that came in. Chris is saying, is the product available in the UK? And then he additionally asks, do you need a control system or is there a standalone control?
So we're keypad, to answer the second question first, we're keypad agnostic. So the whole premise of our company is we tie into, as an integrator, you're selling Lutron, Crestron, Control4, and others. You continue selling keypads. Yes, we are a standalone because you can control the entire house or the entire building on an app, not on an app, but on an iPad or a tablet or your phone. But in a residential application, you need a control, you need a keypad on every wall in every room. So yes, we can be standalone more from a commercial standpoint where you may be just powering up an iPad on one wall of the restaurant or the whatever that facility is and control it in that fashion. But from a residential standpoint, you're going to need a third-party control system, and that's who we are as a company. We're not officially distributed in the UK yet. We have looked at a couple of projects on a specific case-by-case basis. But we do expect to be doing something in a more official way probably before the end of this year with regards to Europe.
And then Chris asked one follow-up question. He says, is it PoE?
Well,
it's power over Ethernet for that.
Right. So it's not officially PoE because we don't utilize any network switches of any sort. We are powered directly from our power supplies directly over a single cable to the fixtures themselves. So we bypass any network switches and so on. So we are low voltage, but technically we don't call ourselves PoE.
Got it. And then will you be at CEDIA? Like where can everyone, just at a high level, obviously there's going to be some exposure that comes from people watching this or listening to the show or listening to the podcast. What is the place people would see or learn more about Colorbeam?
From a trade show perspective, we're at all the major ones. Definitely CEDIA. We've been there every year since our inception. We're actually, our next major show is Light Fair, which is our first foray into an actual lighting show as opposed to an audio-visual show. So we'll be doing Light Fair in Philadelphia in a couple weeks or 3 weeks, I believe, towards the end of May. And we'll be at InfoComm as well. With details that I can't quite share yet because there's things to follow. But yes, we'll be at all three of the major shows coming up.
That's awesome. Can you put into your own words, Mike, tunable lighting, Why is that a thing? Why is that becoming such a trend, and specifically in our space?
So the whole reason behind tunability is to mimic the color of the sun. And really what the research is showing is that because we're exposed to very white light throughout the day, that melatonin should be triggered, which is actually what leads us to sleep, is not happening because of this exposure to very bright white light. So the ability to tune lights in a circadian rhythm application is basically the ability to match your indoor lighting to the sun's light and the temperature of the sun as it rises right through to its sunset. And having the ability to match and mimic sunlight is what triggers later on during the day and into the evening melatonin, without getting scientific on you, which leads you to say it's basically telling your brain to shut down and it's time to go to bed. And having better sleep patterns leads to better health, which is everything that's being written about today is health being affected by sleep. So if we can help sleep by having better lighting that reflects sunlight, then we're accomplishing not only better sleep patterns, but better health. And that's the whole science behind and the whole value proposition between human-centric wellness lighting going forward.
Do you see this capability of tunable lighting or human-centric lighting? Do you see that one day this will be the normal? This will be what all lighting is at every demographic level, or is this really only attainable for, the wealthiest of society?
Absolutely. Within, I don't know I'll put a 5-year, tops 10 years, that I don't think you'll have a light bulb or a light source. They won't be in one way, shape, or form tunable, changeable, controllable. Absolutely.
No, that's fascinating. It's certainly great to see that you guys are out there leading the charge. What is top of mind for you? What has been any big announcements or your newest products? What are the hottest things that the marketplace is excited about?
Well, from a technology perspective, really our next generation of fixtures that we launched at CEDIA in September was really us going from an RGB light engine that was able to do white and color to our next generation of what we call tunable white. So the tunable white fixtures do not do color, but they are a much higher lumen output, high CRI. When we talk about CRI, just a term that means color rendering index, and the closer that number is to 100 means that the closer you are mimicking sunlight. And the colors of an apple that you'll be outside at noon, and that apple is being reproduced in the red that it's absolutely supposed to be. So the higher the CRI, which in the industry starts at about 70 and will reach 95 and above, is really the quality of the lights that you're giving out, which will reproduce colors the way they were intended to be seen. So everything that we just launched now is 95 plus CRI, high lumen output, tunable white, which is really where our market is heading because we play in that higher market space. So that was really the next generation of products. Subsequently to that, we just announced a specific product, which is called our Venus fixture, which was introduced in one of the magazines recently. And the value proposition to that is really the fact that it has all the feature sets that a designer would be looking in a fixture. It is the smallest aperture you can probably find. You're looking at about a 2-inch trim with a 1 1/4-inch aperture. It's a trimless fixture, which means that all you're seeing in the ceiling is that 2-inch aperture, which is what designers are looking for. It's 1,000 lumens, it's tunable, it's dimmable, but more importantly, it was designed, it's 1.5 inches thick. There's no electronics in this fixture. All it is on the back side of this is 1.25 inches heat sink. And the value proposition to that is in high-end markets like Florida, some degree California, New York, where you've got these $1 million and more multi-million-dollar condos, apartments, where builders don't want to give up ceiling space. They want the highest ceilings possible. So you'd have these multi-million-dollar condos with no ability to put quality recessed lights in the ceiling, and they'd end up having track lights that were basically bolted to the ceiling, with even maybe a wire running across, which we've all seen when we were, in our apartments in university, because there was nothing else available. So now with less than 2 inches of ceiling space, we're able to give customers a very unique product that delivers all the high-end benefits, high CRI, high lumen output, small aperture. It's really a very unique feature set that really is sought after by lighting designers, and high-end clients.
And you just mud finish it? So you just finish up to the trim bezel?
Exactly. In the high-end market, the trimless fixture is really what, I'm not going to say it's always sought after, but in a lot of cases it is, that whole trimless look. So this is a trimless mud-in fixture as well. And one of the other propositions, people ask me all the time, well, what happens if you have to service it? Do you have to rip out the entire fixture, which is in some cases, and other manufacturers that have something similar, that is the case. We engineered it that you can actually unscrew the aperture, and the only thing that you would ever have to service is the actual chips inside. So without having to remove the fixture out of the ceiling, you can actually service the only thing that would ever have to be serviced anyways. So that's a whole value proposition in itself.
Yeah, this product, Venus, is new. It's
been shipping for a few months now, and it's some very high-end projects with it that were designed probably a year back, or probably still 3 to 9 months away from being delivered. But it is a very sought-after product right now.
Yeah, that's exciting. And what was the stuff that you released at CEDIA, the tunable white? What I'm on your products page.
Well, the tunable white is really just a technology in itself. This is just one product, it's tunable white, but the others are, the TB series and the Bianca, which is basically replacing, or not replacing, in addition to the RGB fixtures that we still have. These are just different sizes and different lumen outputs of a tunable white only fixture. So the same technology in the Venus. The Venus is just unique because of the specs of the fixture itself, but the technology and the tunable white and everything else is the same in everything that we're doing today from a fixture perspective. One of the things that we launched at CEDIA also that's important to note is everything that we're doing is focusing on the smallest footprint in the enclosure at the head end, the electronics, to be able to drive as much as we can as far as footprint of lighting with the smallest footprint in the closet required. Because in a lot of applications, wall space is at a premium. So if you're doing a substantial project, the 35,000 square foot house in Las Vegas is a great example. Not every house has walls and walls and walls of available footprint to put these panels on. So we're trying to drive everything smaller and smaller so that we're requiring less and less wall space to drive more and more square footage of light, which is what we're trying to accomplish.
In terms of the go-to-market strategy, do dealers set up direct relationships with ColorBeam, or do they buy through distribution? Or do you have reps? Like, what are all those mechanics in the marketplace?
So on the residential side, which is really the side of the business that we've been focused on for the last 3 years, our model is direct relationship with our integrators through rep firms. On the commercial side, we'll be announcing something very shortly that's going to be a little bit different. But at the end of the day, for the residential purpose, anyways, our relationship is direct with the AV channel. Now, the channel in itself is very unique to us because we've chosen, as of today and still today, to exclusively go after the AV channel as our go-to channel. For a couple reasons. One, it's where we come from. Two, right, the technology in itself requires the skill sets that AV integrators have always had. So the only thing that AV integrators don't necessarily have today is the ability to be in early enough in projects to spec lighting. However, that's changing because by having lighting and high-end lighting in their back pocket, they're now able to form relationships with specifiers that as an AV company, we've never had the ability to form before. AV has always been the last guys in. We've never had any value to specifiers, but now lighting brings something to them that is part of their profession. Lighting plays a huge part of being an architect, a lighting designer. So now by AV having that as a solution and an exciting solution, and the future of lighting as a solution, they're now able to form relationships with specifiers. Oh, and by the way, they're being brought into projects 2 years ahead of time.
Yeah,
so when you talk to AV guys about why you need to get into this, that's just one of them. But if you're going to be in early for the lighting, who else would benefit by getting the AV package? It just makes sense that the guy who's in there, who is now the all-encompassing low voltage integrator, and that's really where we're pushing the AV channels, is saying, hey, you can't just be the AV guy anymore. You've got to be everything low voltage. And a lot of them have migrated to, they've gone from AV to security to IT, but this is the next best, or not the next best, the next great opportunity, because it offers a low voltage solution to add to what they're already doing. And that's what this is all about.
I'm curious, for the company, the integrators you have that are out driving this category, driving your company, driving the category of LED fixtures, low voltage fixtures, is there pushback from the electricians and or from the MEP firms that would need to ultimately stamp and approve a set of plans when they see lighting fixtures? And I say this because there's a number of companies now, yourself included in being a major player, that are bringing these solutions to the marketplace. And I'm hearing of more and more projects going entirely low voltage for their lighting. And I'm just more curious than anything else. Is there pushback at any level from, say, the historic or standard ways things were done in the past?
Well, there's obviously a pushback from the electricians because they're seeing this as a huge threat. We encourage AV guys to actually forge relationships with electricians. One way of doing this is to push them aside. I prefer to tell integrators that there's a great opportunity to form a relationship and take the value proposition that the electrician has of maybe being in earlier than you as an AV guy, but not necessarily having the skills and the competencies of deploying what is now digital lighting. They don't have the competencies. They've never done programming. Lighting today, because of its digital nature, is a completely different beast. It requires a whole different skill set, the skill set that our AV channel has. So, you can say that together they're a perfect team. Not every AV company has an electrical side of their business. Most electricians don't have an AV side or a competency in programming. Together, they make a unique team, and we'll see where that goes in general. From a pushback from the builders or anyone that's stamping plans, this is ours anyways. Everything that we do is UL listed. So there is absolutely no reason why this cannot be implemented in any project anywhere. Class 2, UL listed, UL certified. There's no reason why this doesn't go in anywhere. So that is not an excuse to not forge ahead with low voltage lighting, as long as you're compliant, as long as you got the right certifications, as long as the products that you're selling, whether that be ColorBeam or someone else, has the certifications that are required to meet local and state legislation.
What, at a high level, and to the extent that you can say anything about costs or margins to integrators, what is the profit opportunity for an integrator to figure this out? Jump in, meet you guys, and start doing business.
Well, without being specific, I can say that the margin opportunity is as much, if not greater, than anything they're doing in the AV space, and that's what we repeat day in and day out. So
that's pretty compelling.
Not only from a margin, the margin opportunity is one thing, but it's the revenue opportunity. I mean, you got to remember that if you're doing a whole house, you're not buying 2 fixtures. it's hundreds, it's thousands, depending on the size of the project. And another thing that I always repeat to AV integrators is that, not every room requires AV, but I've yet to walk into a room that doesn't have a light bulb. So when you look at the size of the lighting industry in general, it's probably one of the top 10 industries, if not the top 5 industries in the world. The opportunity is immense. Some are small, some are great. We have landscape as an opportunity in itself. Our landscape lighting, without even selling an indoor light bulb, is an opportunity in itself. If you look at what AV manufacturers are doing, how many of them are putting more and more outdoor product in the marketplace? High-end audio, high-end video, multi-$100,000 AV screens and LED screens. Well, if our collective customers are spending that kind of money for outdoor AV gear and creating this unique space to be enjoyed, why would you not light that space better as opposed to having Christmas lights in your trees? So that in itself is an opportunity for our AV channel.
I concur. By the way, I'm going to give Stephanie a shout out. Stephanie says lighting is such a versatile and beneficial feature, especially in residential spaces. Can't wait to see more of Color Beam in homes.
Cool.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's pretty cool.
One of the things I don't know how much time we have, but one of the things that I get excited about from a lighting perspective, having been in AV, there's not a whole lot in AV that gets people's attention or gets people excited or gets a wow factor anymore. But lighting is a very emotional thing. And when you have a well-lit home, when you have a well-lit room, it's an emotional thing. People go, we've had dealers sell whole home projects by doing nothing more than opening up one of our demo cases and showing a light that goes from red to blue to green, and having the customer go, wow, that's cool. I want that in my house. So there's an emotional attachment to lighting, and when you see the end results of a well-lit house versus that same house that's poorly lit, it's night and day. And if we can get more customers realizing that, hey, just spend a little bit more money on your lighting and maybe a little bit less on something else, you're going to create an incredible difference between a well and a poorly lit home. And that's the education process.
I think lighting is such a fun category when integrators get comfortable. I mean, I know they can make money. I've known integrators for many years that have been selling fixtures and have been laughing all the way to the bank in terms of the profit opportunity, but also all the other opportunities you said, just getting into projects early, sometimes months or years in advance, getting specified, becoming the go-to, solutions provider. And, every member of that family wants to talk about lighting. The interior designer wants to talk about lighting. The architect wants to talk about lighting.
Yeah. Well, these days I feel like an evangelist more than anything else. It's just getting out there and saying, hey guys, from an AV perspective, that's part of my presentation every day is, I'm not another lighting guy that says, hey, you should get into this category. We're the AV guys that had success with a product that we developed for ourselves in the AV space. And then we're saying, hey, most AV guys have, I'm going to say all, but they all have the same competencies and skills and experience to get into this space. Why are some jumping in right away and others are a little bit more apprehensive? Well, there's reasons behind that, but we just got to do as well as we can.
You got to shake them loose. You got to,
over the head and shake them loose. That's what we do every day.
Maybe they have their head in the sand and we need to pull it out of the sand and show them the light.
Show them the light.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Mike, it's been a pleasure to have you on episode number 72 of Automation Unplugged. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day for this.
Appreciate it, Ron. Really had a fun time, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
If folks watching or listening want to learn how to do business with Color Beam, or they want to meet you directly, what do you recommend? What's the best avenue?
Pick up the phone and call me directly, or send me an email at to make it easy, info@colorbeamlighting.com, and that'll get directed to me anyway. So any questions about becoming a Color Beam dealer or wanting to know a little bit more about the company, I'm happy to speak to you all.
Awesome. And I'm going to flash that on the screen here. Give me 1 second. Color Beam. The info at Color Beam Lighting, right?
.com. Yep.
Awesome. There we go, folks, on the screen. Info at colorbeamlighting.com. That's how you can get a hold of Mike and learn more about lighting fixtures, because they are not a lighting controls company. Do not make that mistake when you call Mike. Make sure
you are right, Ron. You are absolutely right.
Mike, pleasure having you on, sir.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Thanks.
All right, folks, there you have it. As you can see, my video looks a little bit different. I had my camera 1 fail, but that's why you always have backup. So this is camera 2 that I was able to take over with earlier on in the show. So let me just put a couple of pieces of artwork up here. Let me show you. So here you can see show number 73 is going to be next week. I've got really an amazing author and coach, entrepreneur, a guy named Brad Sugars. And Brad Sugars is actually one of the most famous business coaches in the world. And he's going to be on our show. He's going to be here with us. It's very exciting. If you don't know the name Brad Sugars, Google it, check it out. He's written bunches and bunches of books. We're going to be talking about one of his new books and that is just released. And we're going to be talking about that next week. I think it's how to pull profits out of the hat or something to that effect. I'll get it right next week when I have Brad on. Sorry, Brad, if you're watching. And so definitely tune in for that. If you have not already, please remember to go over to Instagram and follow us. We're almost at 600 followers on Instagram, which is exciting. If you've been watching and listening to lots of the shows, you'll see that every now and then I'll do a plug for people following us. You would simply go to Instagram.com/One Firefly LLC, and you'll land on One Firefly's page. So follow us. We try to put fun and interesting content there. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, visit our website and or give us a call. So there's a phone number on the screen. And until next time, have an awesome rest of your day and an awesome rest of your week, wherever you are coming from. Be well, and I'll talk to you soon.